to start this meeting. I first off want to thank everybody for coming to tonight's Neighborhood Council election review for Region 7. Thank you for joining. We are going to record this meeting and we'll send a follow-up email that will have the recording along with the slides presented in this meeting. Before we get started with the presentation, I want to do a few introductions. So my name is Michael Lectrich. I'm with the City Clerk's office and I work under Neighborhood Council Elections and Funding Division. I want to introduce Paola, who's one of our election administrators in the office. So a few of you might have her as your election administrator. And then also we have Mayor Lou with us, who will be presenting on Empower LA's engagement plan for the neighborhood council elections. So first, we're just going to dive right in. And I'm going to go over the administration of the neighborhood council elections, which is what the city clerk's office handles. So first, I'll go over a bit of the meeting agenda. So I'll start going over some election documents that we create, some things that we refer to in the bylaws to create the election for every neighborhood council, because each election is unique. Then I'm going to go over the candidate filing process. Then we'll discuss the all vote by mail election model for 2025. Because our office was only funded to provide all vote by mail election for neighborhood councils. So I'll go step by step through that process. Then we're going to go over some election resources that are available for this election season. I'll hand it off to Mayor Lou, and she'll give some information from Empower LA for neighborhood council elections. And then we'll have plenty of time to answer any questions. If you have any questions as we go through, you can put it in the chat and Paola will be monitoring those. And we'll make sure that we get to all of those questions. So with that, we'll just hop right in. So first, I want to highlight NC bylaws, the sections that we look to when we start building the election for each neighborhood council. So everything pretty much starts with the neighborhood council bylaws. The first thing we look at is Article 3, which details the boundaries for the neighborhood council. It will not only have the boundaries of the neighborhood council as a whole, but also the boundaries if there's any internal boundaries, if there's any shared assets, such as a high school might be shared between different neighborhood councils. Sometimes there's a park that's shared between different neighborhood councils, and that information will be covered here. Article 4 goes over the 4 different stakeholder types, which I'll review in the next slide. Those 4 stakeholder types are across the board the same for all 99 neighborhood councils. Article 5 will have the governing board. So this is very specific to each neighborhood council because it will list out the seats that are on the board. It will also cover if there's any term limits. Oftentimes, if a neighborhood council has staggered seating, and staggered seating, whenever I refer to that, that means half the board is usually up for election 1 year, and the other half is in the next election cycle. That might be listed in Article 5. And there might be any kind of specific requirements for candidates in this area as well that we look to. Article 10 covers the elections as a whole. This includes the voter verification type. It will often have, if there's any special information about the voting structure, if there's any candidate restrictions, things like that will be covered in Article 10. Attachment A is the visual of the map. So it takes Article 3 and puts everything in a visual format. That's attachment A. And attachment B, we refer to all the time. This has the governing board structure and the voting requirements. So it will list out every seat that's on the board. It will list their term length. It will also list if they're elected, selected, or appointed. Then it will have the candidate requirements and the voter requirements for every seat on the board. So that's what we look to when we take the bylaws. Next, I want to talk about stakeholder types. There's 4 stakeholder types when we talk about neighborhood councils that are these stakeholder types apply to all 99 neighborhood councils. The first one is live. So that's anyone who resides within the neighborhood council boundaries. The next one is work. So anyone who provides services within the neighborhood council boundaries. Next one is owning property. Anyone who owns real property within the neighborhood council's boundaries. And then the fourth and last stakeholder type is community interest. This one can be a little tricky. So this is defined as a person who participates in a nonprofit organization that has continuously maintained a physical street address for not less than 1 year, and that performs ongoing and verifiable activities and operations that benefit the neighborhood. So the 3 aspects that we look to when we talk about a community interest stakeholder is it's going to be someone who is participating in a community organization. And the requirement is that that community organization must be nonprofit and must have a physical address within the boundaries for not less than 1 year. I do want to highlight that when we talk about stakeholder types, citizenship is not required for stakeholders. They just have to fall in one of these 4 categories. And so what we do is we take the information from the bylaws, stakeholder type information, and we create the ballot voting models, or BVMs. All of the BVMs were emailed by your election administrator to Region 7. So if you were a board member, hopefully you've had a chance to review the ballot voting model. If you didn't happen to see this, could you can drop that information in the chat, and then we'll be able to make sure that we get that ballot voting model over to you. But I'll break down kind of the ballot voting model right now. So the first part that you're going to see is the neighborhood council name with the abbreviation. This information will match the bylaws. It will be the information that's used in the certified list of candidates. It'll be used on the ballots. It'll be used on all types of any election related materials that come from our office. Next, we'll have the ballot types. So this will be how many ballot types there will be in that election season. So for example, this neighborhood council will have 9 different ballots for this election. Under that, we'll have ballots issued. Ballots issued is how many ballots a stakeholder can receive. So this one, each stakeholder is only going to receive 1 ballot. However, there's some neighborhood councils where they might receive up to 10 ballots. It's really going to depend on the voting structure for that neighborhood council. Under that, we're going to have board seats. So we'll list how many board seats there are on that board, and then how many are up for election. Then it will list the term. Terms for neighborhood council board members is always 2 or 4 years. Under that, we'll have voting age. Voting age is always 16 years or above, unless there is a U seat. When there's a U seat, 14 and 15-year-old stakeholders can vote for that U seat. Under that, we have the stakeholder verification type. There's the 2 different types of verification when it comes to neighborhood councils. That's self-affirmation and documentation. Later in the presentation, I'll go over the differences of those 2. Then we have candidate restrictions. Most common is the one that's listed here, which is candidates can run for no more than 1 board seat. Sometimes there may be different restrictions that will be outlined in the bylaws, and we would list that here. Then we have other election related language. will include any shared boundaries in this area, or if there's any other boundaries in that area, or if there's any other kind of special election related language. For example, here, Venice High School is a shared asset between Mar Vista and Venice Neighborhood Council. Then we have the vote by mail period. So we'll list out the dates for vote by mail. Underneath that, we'll have a breakdown of every ballot type. So there's 9 different ballot types. So there will be 9 different sections, which will start with what the name of that ballot's going to be, the qualifications to receive that ballot, and then we'll have a breakdown of what seats will be on that ballot, including the number of seats. So for example, there's 7 at-large director seats that will be on that ballot. So stakeholders will be able to vote for up to 7 at-large directors, but only 1 zone 1 director. So that's the ballot voting model. Now I'm going to go through the candidate filing process. Candidate filing for Region 7 is going to start December 27th, 2024, and go through February 10th, 2025. So candidate filing for neighborhood councils is a 45-day period. That's 45 calendar days. And it's open 24/7 when using the portal, or paper applications can be sent to us at any time too. So then we have application types. Candidates have 2 options to submit their application. One is through the neighborhood council portal, and the other one is using a paper application. We'll go through both of these. The benefit of the paper application, we do have those translated into 13 different languages. Those are all available on our website. They're PDF fillable forms as well. So if the preference is to just fill it out and email it, that's an option, but it can also always be printed and sent to our office as well. Required documentation. I do want to note, regardless of the voter verification type, all candidates are required to provide documentation proving stakeholder status. And when we talk about required documentation, there's 3 things that we're looking for. One is a photo ID. The other is proof of age, because there's always that age requirement when it comes to candidates. It's typically 18 years and above, unless it's the U seat, which is 14 to 17, and then proof of stakeholder status. So if they're any of those 4 stakeholder types, they have to prove that they live, work, own real property, or have community interest in the neighborhood council. So our office, once we receive the application and review the required documentation, and we see that they meet the requirements, the candidate will be certified. A certified candidate means that their name will be on the ballot for that election. Once a candidate is certified, there is a period of time where candidates can be challenged. Most common kind of challenge that we might see is if that neighborhood council has term limits. They might be challenged to state that maybe they've exceeded their term limits. So what we would do is we review that information and then affirm or deny the candidate challenges. Once the candidate challenge period is ended, the candidate filing period is ended, we release what we call the certified list of candidates. This is released 60 days prior to the election, and it will have all of the seats that are up for election, all of the candidates that will be on the ballots. They will all be in random alpha order to match the ballots. And then also, we release the contact information for candidates to neighborhood council boards should they have a candidate forum or any events promoting the election. They will be able to be contacted and be notified to have the opportunity to participate. So what I'm gonna do now, bear with me for just a second while I switch screens. I'm gonna go over the candidate filing form, paper form, and then we'll go through the portal as well. So this is the 2025 Neighborhood Council candidate filing application. The first part is the Neighborhood Council information. So they list out the neighborhood council, the seat name. Under that is the candidate information. So the first thing they can put is their name on the ballot. One thing that to note with neighborhood councils, the name on the ballot does not have to match their legal name exactly, but it's what they're known by in the community. So for example, the name on the ballot here is Victor Aguilar. While their legal name is Theo, maybe in the neighborhood they go by Victor, which could be their middle name and things like that. So the name on the ballot, pronouns, this is optional. The only place that the pronouns shows is on the candidate website. This is completely optional. It does not show up on the ballot or anywhere else. Next is the first name and last name, so legal name. Then the birth year. Usually only the birth year is required because for most candidates, the requirement is 18 years or above. So as long as the year is over 18, that is fine. There's certain seats where we might have to contact the voter for the exact day, but we know that people are more comfortable just providing their birth year. And then next, they can provide contact information. This is optional, but highly recommended because this is how we can contact a candidate if we have any questions. I do often state that we get paper applications all the time that might have just a name and a phone number. So as long as we have a way to contact that candidate, we'll try to work with them to see if we can get the information we need to certify their candidacy. So I always highly recommend that at least we get the name and some sort of contact. And that's great, so that if we have any questions, we can contact them. Next, there's the question, are you a current board member in this neighborhood council? They can select yes or no. Under that, there is the option to initial if you agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. That's optional. So it's up to the candidate. So it's included here. And the next section is the qualifying address. The qualifying address, whenever we talk about qualifying address, this is the address that ties that stakeholder to the neighborhood council. And so we've broken it down into the 4 different stakeholder types. This stakeholder, for example, just only works in the neighborhood council. So they've included that information here. So it's just the organization name, street address, pretty standard. We do have checkboxes in most of the different categories. The reason for that is just to help us with certain seats. For example, there's some neighborhood councils where being an employee is a different seat that you could be eligible for rather than an owner or a business owner. Just like owning property versus renting property might make you eligible for different seats based off that neighborhood council. We do state complete all that apply because sometimes someone might put a live address and a work address, and one of those might not be within the boundaries, but the other one is. Or sometimes there's seats where you might have to live and have community interest. So providing that information helps us through the process. Underneath that, there's the documentation area. So they can list out if they've attached any documentation to the application. So for this example, since the voter works in the neighborhood council, they're providing a driver's license, which meets the photo ID and age requirement. And then the pay stub which ties them to an address within the neighborhood council. Under that, they just sign under penalty of perjury that all those statements are true and correct. So they just sign and date. And that's what's required to submit an application. There is also a second page where they can they can include a candidate statement. Candidate statements must be 1,000 characters. That's including punctuation spaces. And whatever is included in this statement will be matched on the candidate website, which I'll show an example of in a little bit. And so that's the paper application. Now I'm going to go through and show the neighborhood council candidate, or well, just neighborhood council filing portal, which is it's the same portal for candidates and voters. The good thing is last election season, voters had to go through the Angelino accounts to sign into the portal. Now we have a login where they can set up an account straight through the portal. And to do that, they just click need an account, register here. And they just include their first name, last name, email, confirm their email, and click create. When they click create, they'll receive an email that will have a link for them to set up an account, set up a password. Once they set up that password, they'll be able to log in. If a user forgot their password, they can always click forgot your password and type in their email. So I've gone through that process. I've created an account. So I type in my email and password and I can log in. And so I can click. So we have candidate highlighted here. And I can, just to start my candidate account, I hit create candidate application. And we have the application for candidates broken up into 5 steps. So we'll go through all those steps and those benefits here. So the first step is neighborhood council specific. So you choose from the drop-down menu the neighborhood council that you're running for. So I'll choose Silver Lake. Once you choose the neighborhood council, you then get a drop-down menu for the seats. The only NCs that are going to show up on the drop-down are going to be the NCs that are currently have candidate filing open. This is a test site, so that's why Region 7 is currently open. So once you choose the neighborhood council, you get to select a seat name. And so then you're going to see the seats that are up for election in that neighborhood council. If there's staggered seating, you're only going to see the seats that are up for election, not all of the seats. So I'll just choose at-large representative. And then once I choose that seat, the requirements for that seat will pop up here and they will stay on the portal the whole time through all of the different steps. So after the seat, you can select the your stakeholder type. So there's always the 4 categories. So I'll choose live. And then there's the option, are you a current board member in this neighborhood council? I'll click no. And then we go to next. So next is candidate info. This is pretty simple. So the first part is putting name as it will appear on the ballot. So I can just put Mike Lecterich. Then there's the option for the pronouns. Again, this is completely optional and only shows up on the candidate website. The nice thing about going through the portal is it pulls your first name and last name and email from your registration account, but this is all editable. Like maybe I don't want to have Michael in there. You can edit that. If I have an email that I use more frequently than the one I set up an account for, you can change that here. So that information is pre-filled. Then there's date of birth. When it comes to the portal does require the month and date and year. However, I know, again, it can be sensitive for people to include their full birth date. So we always say that it's okay to put 0101, and then you can put the year. And then we have the option to include a phone number. If the candidate does not want to include a phone number, they can click decline to state. And then under that, they can click to agree if they want to receive neighborhood council information from a Power LA via text. It is optional. So if you don't click it, you're still able to go to the next step. So this is step 3. This is, again, the qualifying address. So I'll put in an address. I apologize. I'm not the fastest typer, but I will try to do this real quick. And then, so as soon as they type in their qualifying address, they can click verify qualifying address. And the benefit of going through the portal is instantly they're able to see if their address is within the neighborhood council boundaries. So you can see for this seat just requires that the address is within the boundaries. So it plots it within the boundaries of that neighborhood council. And it says down here, addresses within the boundaries. If for any reason there's any, maybe it's plotting a little bit differently, or it's hard, just if there's any issues with the address and it doesn't say addresses within boundaries, that's not going to stop the application from being submitted. We'll just have to take a closer look. And then if we have questions, we can contact the candidate. The good thing about this as well is, let's say that this was a Region 7 seat. Instead of the whole neighborhood council being highlighted, only Region 7 would be highlighted, so that you're able to make sure that you meet the location requirements of that neighborhood council, that seat in particular. So we'll just hit close, and then they can choose mailing address. So it's same as qualifying, different from qualifying, or decline to state. We'll say decline to state. And we could choose next. When we talk about the candidate filing process, it's really broken up into 2 different steps. The first step is the candidate filing deadline. That's just requiring that an application is submitted. So an application can be submitted once these 2 pop-up windows are completed. So this is the penalty of perjury agreement. And it's just a reminder that documentation has to be provided with their application. So they hit submit. Next is the neighborhood council board member candidate for election board service acknowledgement and affirmation. This is required for all candidates to agree to. We do have this information available in different areas on our website, so it can be referred to at a later date. It has a wealth of knowledge about neighborhood council system and things that the neighborhood council board members do, and just access to lots of resources. So at the end, candidates can accept, and once they click accept, they can submit. Once you hit submit, that means that your application is submitted. So that's all that's required for the candidate filing deadline. After the candidate filing deadline, there are 3 additional calendar days for candidates to provide documentation with their application. So now we're into step 4, which is the documentation page. If candidates have any questions about the kind of documentation they need, they can click here, and it will take them to our 2025 Neighborhood Council Election Documentation Guide. The nice thing about the documentation guide is we have it broken down to different types of stakeholders. So for example, here we have, if you live in the NC as a homeowner residence, we have it broken down to common examples of proof of home ownership that we receive, common examples of photo ID, and examples of proof of age. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just kind of our most common types of documents that we receive. And it's just a good reference point for stakeholders. But it's always going to have proof of ID and proof of live However, let's say that I'm saying that I live within the neighborhood council and I have a valid driver's license that qualifies me, that not only includes my photo ID, date of birth, and my stakeholder status. That would work for me, and that's all that we would need in the application. So I can select from the common list of examples we get, but we always have an other category. So I'll say a driver's license, and you can select a file or drag it, and I'll just hit driver's license. And you can see that the document was uploaded to my application and it will be reviewed by our office. So that's all I need. So I can just hit next. And that will take me to step 5, which is the candidate profile. The candidate profile is where we would have our photos and statements of candidates. This is optional and it does not have to be done at the time of submitting your application. You have actually up until 35 days prior to election day to update this. You can also, let's say that you submit one and a week later you realize, oh, there's more information I want to provide. You can always edit that. So for a photo, I'll just select a file. And we have a way that you can kind of edit how much of the photo shows so that they're all standard size. So let's see that. And then down here, I can see a preview of what it will look like on the candidate website. So looks fine to me. So I'll hit use that image. And then I have the option here to include my candidate statement. So I can just type something like, and you can see, so down here, this starts to track how many characters you've used of that 1,000 character limit. What I do want to also mention when it comes to candidate profiles, which is the photo and statement, those do get reviewed by our office prior to going on the candidate website. The reason for that is just because there's oftentimes, it's already happened this election cycle, where someone accidentally uploads their documentation, has their candidate photo, like a driver's license, deeds, stuff like that. And we just don't want that sensitive material going on the candidate website, especially if it goes on, maybe it goes on Friday night, and we don't catch it until Monday morning. So then it was available for multiple days. So we just want to avoid that. But I'll click save. And so you can see the application was submitted. And so with every application, we have what we call a candidate tile. So this just gives kind of a quick snapshot of every application. So it will have the ballot name, the neighborhood council listed, the seat that was chosen for that application, the stakeholder type, and the status of that application. So for example, this one was certified, so that's great. And then it has a few of the different documentation deadlines. You always have the option, as long as candidate photos and statements are still being accepted, you can just click candidate photo and statement. And you can edit the statements. And you can also withdraw. One thing to note is, let's say that you are a stakeholder in multiple neighborhood councils. You can submit your candidate applications all under one registration account, but only one per neighborhood council, unless that neighborhood council allows you to run for multiple seats. So you can always submit these, and as you can see, this test account that I have quite a few applications in here, but you can go through and you can see a snapshot of all the applications you have submitted. And so that's the candidate filing process, but I do want to show the candidate website. So any neighborhood councils who have opened for candidate filing will be listed here. So let's go to, we'll San Pedro has a good amount. And so on the candidate website, it will list out the seat name, the terms for that seat, how many seats are up for election, the qualifications to run for that seat, and the qualifications to vote for that seat. So it's a really good resource for candidates to make sure that they know who's eligible to vote for them. And then it will have the candidate photos and statements. Candidates will be in the random alpha order to match what it will be on the ballots. So that if someone has their ballot, they can go through and they'll see everything in the same order. And so, for example, when you scroll over, then you get to see the candidate statement. And then underneath as well, you get a snapshot of what we use to certify that candidate. One thing I do want to mention when we talk about documentation, once a candidate is certified, we destroy that documentation. So we no longer have access to the actual documentation. We only have access to our notes of what was used to certify that candidate, but we do not keep actual copies of it just because there can be a lot of sensitive material that's included. And so once a candidate is certified, that documentation is deleted from our system. And so with that, I'm going to go back to our presentation. So we went through the paper application, we went through the portal, and then now I'm going to talk about the all vote by mail registration process. So for Region 7, that's going to be February 28th through April 20th, 2025. The first step is going to be a vote by mail application is submitted. It is important to stress that applications must be submitted every election. There's multiple reasons for this, but one of them is we want to assure that when someone submits their application, they meet the requirements, the current requirements for that neighborhood council. And we want to make sure that we're providing the proper ballots because there is no voter roll with neighborhood councils. Everyone must submit an application every neighborhood council election season. Once we receive applications, our office will review that application to verify voter eligibility based off the bylaws. So we've verified the voter is eligible, which ballot or ballots they're going to receive, we will mail out a ballot packet. Included in that ballot packet is going to be the ballot or ballots that voter is eligible for. The instructions will include information on the candidate website, election day, ways to drop off their ballot, things of that nature. We will also include a prepaid return envelope, so voters can just use that to send their ballots into our office. So the next step, pretty self-explanatory, stakeholder votes. And then lastly, the ballots are returned to our office. There's 3 different ways that those ballots can be returned. One is with USPS using that prepaid return envelope. We will also have neighborhood council ballot boxes available throughout the region. I'll go over those locations shortly. And they can also always be returned to our office. I do want to highlight as well that we've increased the amount of notification emails that will be sent to voters. So I'll break down what those are. So 4 of these areas that I just talked about, voters will be getting emails. So they get an email once we've received their application. Next, they'll receive an email once their application has been verified for eligibility. After that, they'll get an email once a ballot packet has been mailed to them. So the great thing about that is they can see, let's say that you can see that the ballot was mailed 2 weeks ago and you still haven't received it. You can contact our office and we can send a resend right away. And then they also get an email when the ballot has actually been returned, which is great. So that they're able to see and feel assured that their ballot will be included in the tally. So now I want to talk about voter verification types. So there's two different voter verification types. There's self-affirmation and documentation. So I'm going to break down what we look for and then how we use those different types, how we verify that. So the first one is identity. So for self-affirmation, the voter is providing their information on an application. Documentation, we need a photo ID. So most common example is going to be driver's license. Next thing we're looking for is age, because there's always an age requirement to vote in neighborhood council elections. So with self-affirmation, they're providing date of birth on the application. Under documentation, we need a document with the date of birth. Again, most common example is going to be driver's license. And then under that, we have stakeholder status. So this is those 4 different stakeholder types, whichever one they qualify for. For self-affirmation, they're providing their stakeholder status and address on the application. So for example, if they live, they're just providing the address where they live on the application. Under documentation, the stakeholder will provide a document with stakeholder status information. So for example, a utility bill. So in this, maybe I have a driver's license that does not have my current address. So it will work for photo ID and age, but maybe I need something that shows that I have that I currently live at that location. And so a utility bill can be paired with that. So I'm going to go through the 2 different state registration options. The first one is going to be online registration, which is through the neighborhood council portal. And this is open for a 51-day period. And the great thing about going through the portal, stakeholders are able to track their application and ballot status the whole time. So they can log in at any point and see the status of their application or ballot. And then the other option is a paper registration. This is an 81-day filing period. This is a longer period as requested by neighborhood councils, so that they can use the paper application at different events, meetings, things of that nature. Again, just like candidate filing application, those will be available on our website in multiple different languages in PDF fillable formats. And a benefit that a lot of people, especially neighborhood councils, see with the paper application is voters can designate an authorized agent to collect applications. So for example, if I was a board member and I wanted to make sure that I was getting information out about my neighborhood council, I would be able to walk through the neighborhood, hand out the application, have this section of the paper application filled out. And then as long as this section is filled out, I can collect all those applications and turn them into our office at a later date. And then we can then go ahead and process those applications. So let me go through, let me share the screen. Let me switch really quick. So, all right. So first we'll go through the paper application. So when it comes to a paper application, we have the voter information. So we'll start with the neighborhood council. So they put the neighborhood council. And then they can put in their first name, middle name, last name, the birth year. Again, we only really need birth year, as the requirement to vote is usually 16 years or above. However, we might need more specifics based off the requirements. Then there's the option to include a phone number and email. This is optional, but just like candidates, if we get an application that has a name and a phone number, we will make sure to contact those voters to work with them to see if we can see how they can qualify to receive a ballot. They also have the option to initial if they agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. And then we have the qualifying address section, which is very similar to the candidate qualifying address section. It's broken up into the 4 categories and they include their information. It is important in most neighborhood councils to complete all that apply. So for example, here, if they include their live address and their community interest address, that might mean in this neighborhood council, they're able to receive multiple ballots because they might receive one based off their live address and another one based off their community interest address. So they complete their qualifying address section, then they can complete their mailing address, which can be different from above. Maybe it's a PO box, maybe they only work in the neighborhood council or have community interest and they don't want to, like, let's say their community interest is going to a church. They don't want to receive their ballot at the church. They want to use their home address, so they can include that here. And then they can sign under penalty of perjury that all statements are true and correct. So they can sign and date. And then this is the section where I mentioned authorized agent to complete designated forms. This is merely if you want to collect applications through the neighbor and just help out at an event or maybe in your neighborhood. This is not required, but if you would like to do that, it is optional. It's just a way that you can collect different applications and then turn them into our office. So you just fill out the name here and then sign. And that's all it is for the vote by mail paper application. When it comes to voters, they will use our portal, same login information, same way to create an account, but they have login, click voter, and then they can create a voter application. The voter application is 2 or 3 steps. It's going to be based off the neighborhood council. I'll get to that in just a moment. The nice thing about the portal is, again, once you, with whatever information you provided when you registered, that information will be pulled here to be included in your first name, last name, and email. But again, it's editable if you want to change it. Date of birth. If you don't want to put your full date of birth, you can always put 0101, and then you can put a year. There is the option to put a contact preference. So if your preference is to receive an email or if phone number, you can change that. Again, email and phone number are optional, however, highly recommended in case there's any questions with the application. And then there's also the option to click if you agree to receive neighborhood council information from Empower LA via text. This is optional, so we can click next. So now we are on to step 2. So we do have a link to the map. If anyone is not sure which neighborhood council they're part of, they can click on the map, which goes to the Empower LA map. So they can type in their address and it will tell them which neighborhood council they can run for. But so I'll choose, let's go to Rampart Village. When I choose Rampart Village, you'll see up here, the application changed from a 2-step to 3-step. The reason for that is step 3 is now a documentation, because this neighborhood council requires documentation, there's an additional step. If it was self-affirmation, it will end with step 2. So you select the neighborhood council and then you can select the stakeholder types that you are. So when you click live and work, for example, a box pops up down here. So we have the residence address box and a work organization box with an address. So whichever of these choose, you can include that information there, but I'll just say that I live. So let me type that in real quick. I'll type in an address. So the nice thing about going through the portal is they are also able to verify their address, just like candidates. So you can click verify address and it will plot the address on the NC map. So you can see the NC is highlighted in green. And so the address is within boundaries. If for some reason it is not within the boundaries, it does not stop the voter from submitting their application. We can look into it and contact the voter if we have any questions. So once you input the stakeholder address, there's the box for mailing address. So I'll just make it the same. We got a 0. And voters can click verify mailing address, or when they hit next or submit, it will automatically do that. So if this was a self-affirmation neighborhood council, instead of next, this button would say submit, because that's all that's required for self-affirmation. But because it's documentation required, it will take us to the next step. But when you click next, I apologize. I already have an application in for this neighborhood council. So if I clicked next, it would take me to where I would upload documentation very similar to the candidate side. Or if I hit submit, this pop-up happens, which is very similar to when you're ordering online. And before you complete the order, you get a pop-up window confirming your address. And so you can click no, use the address I provided, or yes. Most often this is going to pop up because it's going to add the 4 additional digits to the zip code. So I can just click yes. And that's all that's required for the vote by mail application through the portal. But I do very similar to candidates. You will have a voter tile for each application submitted, because let's say that, maybe you're eligible for all of the neighborhood councils that are having an election at that time. You'll have a tile for each one, which would have the neighborhood council, and it will also have the status of that application. So for example, for my Echo Park application, my ballot has been mailed, and I can just see a little bit of information here, but this is the main thing that we want to look at. So voters can log in at any point once they've submitted their application and review the status. If the ballot has been received, it will say ballot received here. So that is a benefit of going through the portal. So let me go back to the presentation. So we have the vote by mail application, which we went through. We went through the portal. Now I want to share some important vote by mail dates for Region 7. The first one is vote by mail application period will open on Friday, February 28th. Ballot mailing begins Tuesday, March 25th. Vote by mail application period ends Sunday, April 20th. The deadline to request resend ballots is Tuesday, April 22nd. Election day for Region 7 is Tuesday, April 29th. And then lastly, the deadline to receive postmarked ballots is Friday, May 9th. This is 10 calendar days after Election Day. So as long as a ballot is postmarked on Tuesday, April 29th, and we receive it by Friday, May 9th, it will be included in the tally. So, clicking too fast there. I do want to highlight again the 3 different ways that ballots can be returned. So this would be again by April 29th for Region 7. So the first way is going to be USPS. Voters are provided a postage paid return envelope. So that's, the easiest way. We also are partnering with library and rec and park locations, where every region will have a few neighborhood council drop boxes for ballots. I'll be highlighting those locations later. And then also ballots can always be returned to our office as well. So these are the 5 locations where we will have information available about the neighborhood council elections. The information we will have during the candidate filing period. We'll have candidate filing applications available. During the vote by mail period, we'll have vote by mail applications available. And then we will also have ballot drop boxes available 35 days prior to election day. The reason for 35 days prior to election day is that's the first day that that ballots will be mailed for Region 7. So lastly, I want to highlight the election administrators for Region 7. So we have 4 election administrators, and they are there to assist you through this election process. You will be receiving multiple emails from your election administrator updating you throughout the election season. We send emails when candidate filing opens. We send stats for candidate filing and vote by mail so that everyone knows how the election is going so far. And then also just always available to answer any questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mary Lou, and then we will have plenty of time to answer any questions. So with that, hold on just a second.
Sure.
And then Mary Lou, sorry, I forgot to give you access to upload.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. I think while Michael does that, great to be with you all tonight. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Hopefully everything goes smoothly during this transition, and I'll go into slideshow. All right, everything should work great. Perfect. Because I'm sharing my screen, I can't really keep an eye on the chat, so I will do my best to be as thorough as possible. And I will, as Michael stated, there'll be plenty of time to answer questions at the end. So I will scan the chat probably more than likely towards the end and make sure to answer all the questions. I'll do my best to kind of pop in the chat when I can. But as Michael stated, my presentation, his presentation will be shared. Obviously, this is being recorded. My slides will be emailed out. You can always contact me directly if you need the slides, anything else, if you have any follow-up questions. This is a presentation that accompanies our town hall presentation that was hosted back on September 30th, but I'll try to be as thorough as possible. So tonight I will be talking about our department's engagement plan this election cycle, a little bit about our vision on for the neighborhood council elections. Obviously, we're looking forward to building on the awareness that we've been doing year round and supporting neighborhood councils with, building on that civic engagement. And hopefully it results on neighborhood council elections that not only increase awareness of the work that you're all doing, but also um, an increase in the number of candidates, voters, and overall increase in the number and the neighborhood council awareness by translating in more people coming to your meetings, more people joining your committees, and obviously you all having full capacity at your boards. So with that, that is our goal that we are striving for, and the metrics that we are collecting, and that we're trying to reach. Our full engagement plan is available on our website, and I can definitely share and will be sharing in an email that you will receive right before candidate filing opens. As you all will be receiving an email from me right before that happens, as all neighborhood councils have been up to now. Now to share a little bit about our framework for our plan. We are working off of 5 pillars of engagement. These are our campaign objectives that are driving the work that we're doing for citywide outreach and also to support the neighborhood councils. It is messaging and communication engagement, partnerships, that's with city and community partners, candidate and voter engagement, support and coordination with neighborhood councils. That's you all, the members that make up the neighborhood councils in our system, and advertisement. That's paid and free advertisement. Obviously, some of these are activated at different times throughout the election cycle. Right now, we're really focused on messaging and communication engagement, along with coordination with neighborhood councils. And we are activating our partnerships internally throughout the city with city departments. So if you're signed up with a lot of city department newsletters, you may start to see content regarding neighborhood council elections throughout newsletters that you may receive from different city departments, especially as 2025 begins. We're working on a lot of that content. And obviously, for those that are filing to be candidates, we're definitely working on a lot of candidate engagement at the moment. So as I mentioned, our focus at the moment is creating a lot of messaging and a lot of communications content, not only internally for our city partners, for our community partners, but also for you neighborhood council members. So the department has been hard at work developing a lot of copy, content, and graphics to create general awareness of the neighborhood council system. So that's focused on what is the neighborhood council, who can get involved, where meetings take place, what neighborhood councils do, who makes up the neighborhood council, what can you expect when you run for office and you get seated, what does the role of a neighborhood council board member involve, kind of the foundational knowledge of what makes up the system. And then additionally, creating content that focuses on what neighborhood council elections are. As you all know, when we're out in the community, we start asking people to run for office, to file candidacy for their local neighborhood council. And the first thing that they say is, well, what's the neighborhood council? So before we can even ask individuals to file to run as a candidate, we first need to start with explaining to most individuals what neighborhood councils are, what they do, the impact that they have, what types of projects they focus on, the advocacy work that they do, the influence that they have in their community. So a lot of the work that we've been doing in the last couple of weeks has been creating that content, distributing it, and I can tell you that a lot of neighborhood councils have already begun sharing that work. We've partnered with Social Press Kit to distribute this work. I'll be sharing the link in the chat so that you can see the content. We've created the content for citywide distribution, meaning that we've created general content for our community partners, for city departments to share citywide. We've also created regional content that speaks about the neighborhood council system regionally with regional maps, regional content about neighborhood councils at the regional level. This is also useful for elected offices. We will be also tailoring some of these kits for council district offices, which will be distributing to council district offices next week. So hopefully after the holiday break, you will be seeing council district offices start sharing some of that content via their newsletters and on their websites, because we'll make it really easy for them by writing the content and providing them the ready-to-go graphics that will facilitate that work. So that's what makes it easy about having all this really done and ready to go. Here in the couple of bullet points, you can see some of the content just basic content that we've created, how and when to file, who can run, dates on when candidate filing ends and begins, who can vote, how to return your ballot, see who's running, how to find a local ballot box finder, why voting matters, and post-election results, obviously after the fact. Here's a preview of a video that we've created, but obviously I'll be sharing the link for the social press kit so that you can test it and you can start utilizing it yourself. This is just me previewing it. We've organized the content ready to go, so you can preview the content. This is when we uploaded the content about what neighborhood councils are, the work that they do. It's ready to go for Facebook, X, and Instagram. This is the citywide kit that has regional information this is for citywide partners that offer services throughout all the regions in the city. Then here's, for example, Region 11. It has very basic, all the basic information that you just cut and paste into your newsletters, your websites. It has all the graphics. If you can post directly from it. So if you have a neighborhood council account, you can directly click and just post it to your page. You can also download the image if you want to utilize the image for your own personal social media, or you want to post it to Nextdoor. You can also copy the text, edit the text, personalize the text. You can save it for later. It's like I said, everything is pretty customizable. It's just hashtags are all there. It's really just made for neighborhood councils to just not have to at least start from scratch to create their own content, or feel like they need to create their own content. Obviously, you definitely can if you wish to. This obviously is only for those people that are online. There's a lot of our stakeholders that are not online. A lot of our stakeholders are not plugged into social media, maybe have limited broadband access, choose not to be on social media. So we need to find different methods to do outreach to different demographics, different age groups, different linguistic groups in our communities, right? So on candidate filing day, each neighborhood council is also emailed a PDF and image format of a personalized flyer to promote their candidate filing and open seats. Here's an example of what was emailed to the Watts Neighborhood Council. The flyer includes the neighborhood council's logo, branding colors, open seats for their election, their eligibility website, election dates, and filing information. So everything is specific to your neighborhood council's election. Additionally, in that same email, obviously, and beyond that email, I'm available for one-on-one tailored guidance. I've been, very busy going out on a weekly basis to outreach committee meetings. I've been having one-on-ones with election chairs. We also have a public drive with resources and guides. We have templates. We have Canva licenses. All neighborhood councils have Canva Pro licenses. So if your neighborhood council doesn't have access to its Canva license, please contact me so we can make sure that your neighborhood council has access to Canva license in case you want to create your own designs. And you want access to designs that are ready to go from our template library. We have flyers in the office at, based on the template that I'm showing on the screen, that we can print, that your NEA, your neighborhood empowerment advocate, can bring to your next meeting or can coordinate to drop off and provide you. We have door hangers that we've printed in the office that we are using during our own canvassing, but that we'd be more than happy to provide to you. And obviously, we have hard copy candidate applications, the applications that Michael just reviewed with you all, in all 13 languages that we can provide to you. We can neighborhood empowerment advocates can bring those out to your meetings, and you can definitely coordinate with your NEA and let them know what quantity you may need. If you want a specific quantity, if you have an upcoming event, especially if you have a holiday event coming up and you want to make sure that you have those, if you want to make sure that you have flyers, make sure that you reach out. You can always reach out to me directly as well. I can make sure that I get those to you and I do a drop off. These are just great resources. Additionally, in terms of partnerships, obviously, I've hinted that we are looking for key partnerships within the city, some that have already materialized, obviously, with the personnel department. Personnel department has been featuring neighborhood council election content in their newsletter that goes out to about 18,000 employees every month. This is the second month that they've featured neighborhood council elections in their newsletter. And it's gotten a lot of clicks and a lot of engagement. We will continue that throughout the entire election cycle. Additionally, LA Sanitation in their December newsletter started featuring neighborhood council elections. As I stated, in January, we hope to activate a couple of more newsletters throughout the city. And we are in conversation with LADWP to include a QR code and a link to candidate filing application. Hopefully, we're crossing our fingers for the January invoices, but it seems like a tight deadline. So I think we're aiming for the soonest date that we can possibly get it on the billing invoices. So it's been quite a challenging task to do, but we're still holding hope that that can materialize. Obviously, we did a citywide press release with the Office of the City Clerk. We are currently working on one with the Office of the Mayor's team. We're hoping that that's released early next year. We obviously, as Michael stated, we have display and applications throughout Rec and Parks and LAPL library branches. We will be in communication with LAPL branches to do some get out the word events regarding neighborhood council elections early in January, to schedule some dates for some in-person events, because we know that we've been doing great work to do these virtual sessions, but we want to do some in-person events to get out the word for, especially in those communities where maybe, as we stated, broadband or evening meetings are not accessible to our communities. And also, NC 101 presentations. These are our presentations where we introduce the work of the neighborhood council members. We sometimes invite neighborhood council speakers to come and join us at these presentations. So far, since June, we've done about 27 of these. We're scheduling more in 2025. We're focusing these a lot around the neighborhood council elections. So I'm trying to host these throughout every region. So I may be reaching out to you all to see if you're available to join me so that you can speak about your work in the neighborhood council and talk about what your neighborhood council does in that specific community so that you can promote your neighborhood council directly. I am reaching out actively to neighborhood councils when we do work on scheduling those presentations with community-based partners in their area. And I think that's a great asset as well, because then they forge those connections with those partners in that community as well. Other partnerships, we have some upcoming community events. As I mentioned, the holidays are a great opportunity to get the word out. Please invite me if you have if you need supplies or if you need staff support. I myself love going out as well. I'm going out with some staff members this Friday to Harbor Gateway. We're going to do some canvassing in the area, and we're also going to be present for a holiday event to get the word out about candidate filing in that area. On Saturday, we'll be at the Delray tree. I think it's a tree. It's not a tree lighting, but I think it's a holiday event. And we'll be doing we'll sneak in some canvassing and some business. We'll be going door to door to some businesses, asking them if they'll post some of the flyers that we've printed in their windows, to get the word out about candidate filing and do one last push in that area. So really hopeful that, so just like that, if you have any upcoming events or if you need some capacity, let me know. Always available to support whatever work that you're all doing to kind of pass on the engagement to further the impact that you're all having in your communities. With that said, in January, we will begin our SMS outreach citywide. As Michael stated, a lot of the applications include the opportunity for individuals to sign up to receive text messages from our department. That is something that we're piloting. It's relatively new. As you all know, text messaging is not new. It's just something that our department hasn't done. A lot of city departments now do it as part of their default communications. We are working with the mayor's office to pilot this. The mayor's team regularly communicates with Angelino citywide to promote a lot of their initiatives. We are trying to we are partnering with them to see if we can promote neighborhood council elections citywide using the mayor's team's text channels. That is a relatively exciting development for us. We hope that it leads to a lot of awareness about neighborhood councils. So we hope to launch that hopefully at the beginning of January, and hope to have more updates about that as that materializes. And now for the next couple of slides, I think I'll focus a little bit some uh, on some guidance. As I mentioned, I meet a lot. I do a lot of one-on-one with neighborhood council leaders. As of now, I'm a relatively new director in our department. I've been a director for a little bit over a year in this position. And since I was appointed, I've met with about 57 outreach chairs. And in that time, and lately, the number one question that I always get is, how can we further the impact, or how can we leverage a lot of the work that has already been done either by a neighborhood council or is being done, by other partners in our community to further increase awareness of the neighborhood council elections. A lot of it is, I think a lot of the work that you all are already doing. So I think in the next couple of slides, I think a lot of it is just very foundational activities that I think will complement a lot of what we in the department are already doing. So, and I mean, I invite you, if you have an election chair or an outreach chair, These may be the next couple of slides. If they're in need of guidance or in need of some framework, these might be the next couple of slides that I think will be of value to be shared with them. Obviously, I shared our social press kit. I think that content is of value in terms, for neighborhood councils to use in terms of, utilizing those that messaging for their websites, their social media, their newsletters, utilizing those flyers for their in-person events, in terms of being strategic in terms of how you use your capacity. If you need tailored support, if there's something that the department can provide to you for you, let us know so that you don't have to do you know, you don't have to focus on creating those resources. So developing awareness that you believe works best for your community. You all know your community better than we do. Figure out, how they best get their information. If they're online, focus a lot of your efforts online. If they rec if they're offline, focus a lot on, in-person engagement, right? In the community, through maybe visiting businesses, using your free bulletin boards in the community, going to coffee shops, doing in-person events, doing tabling, doing events in the community, and really focusing and communicating with your NEA and myself and letting us know if you need capacity or you need support to get those events done. Secondly, I think is identifying key local partners. Obviously, we rely a lot on our city departments. We rely a lot on our citywide partners. We can definitely be of support with you when it pertains to the partners that we know in your community. You all provide a lot of MPG funding throughout the year. So this is a great opportunity for you all to look back and contact some of those MPG applicants and recipients and ask them to help you in sharing some of your election material, some of your election deadlines. Ask them if they would maybe provide you a blurb in their newsletters, or share a newsletter or share some of your graphics on their social media and help you spread the word about your elections. So this is a great opportunity for you to touch base with some of those partners that you previously funded and that are in your community. Additionally, touch base with nonprofits, homeowner associations, block clubs, chamber of commerce, and local businesses that are in your community. This is a great opportunity to cultivate relationships and use existing relationships to leverage your communications, your outreach, and really bring forth the impact that you're all doing. Some additional awareness methods obviously is creating an awareness and engagement program. I always say there's a lot of neighborhood council leaders that do great work, spend a lot of their time, are great leaders, but don't really share out the great work that they do. And don't spend a lot of time sharing their story and really being providing, being the messenger, because you all are, the best. I think if there is, you all are the walking advertisements of why other people need to join the neighborhood council system. So, share your stories with friends, with those in your communities, with your neighbors. Let them know you're part of the neighborhood council system. Let them know what the neighborhood council system is. If they don't know that you're a part of the neighborhood council system, then most of the time, then you haven't been a great ambassador for your system. So create an awareness program, be, be engaging. In terms of your election website page, have an election page on your website. Have a page dedicated to the important deadlines with links and voter registration. Perhaps have a link to the application itself, to the candidate list. You can link directly to material that's available on the city clerk's website or even our website. Really, the point is that when people visit your website, they should know that there's an election happening for your neighborhood council. They should know that your neighborhood council is looking for local leaders to fill seats. This should also apply to your social media. If you have social media, the same should apply. If you are hosting a meeting during election season, the same should apply. Maybe next to the sign-in sheet, you could have a flyer promoting your election. You can make maybe an announcement at the beginning or at the end of the meeting, notifying those in the audience that you have an election, that you're looking for candidates. And obviously, when we get into the voting phase of the election, you can do a call out for potential voters. The point is, you should be promoting on your communication platforms that you're having an election. And obviously, I think I've spoken a lot about this, community and neighborhood council events, include tabling, canvassing, led by either your board members, your committee members, any outside community volunteers. You can include, our Empower LA staff as part of your capacity as well. Just let us know, and we can definitely be of support and make that as part of your engagement effort. Social media, I think we've spoken enough about that. We're a great tool, not the only tool, but definitely a great resource to reach individuals and to engage with community-based partners. Um, Additionally, the presentations, I think, are a great way to engage those partners in your community. Great way to, I think, also engage members of your board. It's a great way to get, professional development, provide positive experience, share positive experiences at these presentations. Advertising, utilizing at cost, no cost advertising space throughout your community, local publications like micro newspapers, ads online, social media ads. I would say, coffee shops sometimes have free bulletin boards. Those are great. Bus bench ads offered through the city are also a great opportunity. It's a program that we publicize in our department. Those are a great resource. And obviously, if you have a college campus or a school in your service area, especially if you have a youth seat, please include that as part of your awareness efforts. It's a great way to get the word out. A lot of these things obviously can be initiated during the election cycle, but a lot of them are great things to also do year round, be tailored for year-round engagement. My contact information is on the screen. I will also put it in the chat. With that said, I see there are a lot of questions or a lot of comments. And I will take a look at it and try to be as responsive as possible. Let's see.
It seems like
Um,
the one of the questions I noticed was how do NCs get the door? Like, do they have access to the pre-made door hangers and custom flyers? That was a question.
yes, yes. Yes, you don't have to print them yourself. We have a large quantity that are pre-printed in our office. I will put my email in the chat. Just contact me. Let me know, obviously, the quantity, the neighborhood council, I can coordinate and get those to you. Um, it's really as simple as that. You know, we can make sure that you get, if we have the supplies in the office, I will make sure that you get them. So flyers, we can get them to you, door hangers. Um, I think by default, I don't think this question's in here. By default, the flyers are initially made in English, I can tailor them to be in Spanish. You know, we don't have in-house translation, but obviously I speak Spanish, so I can definitely take some time to translate them. Just let me know via email. And then I can definitely dedicate some time to that. Um, yeah, and I see your comment, Philip. Oh yeah, I mean, different, I think, in terms of capacity, I think, you know, presentation is I think every neighborhood council has different capacity. Um, you know, I think our department can do its best to provide support, tailored support as we can. I think, you know, you can always reach out to me. I think we can talk one-on-one about where we can provide additional support, you know, some particular challenges that your community might have, which I'm sure a lot of communities face in LA, and we can discuss. Let me see. I think kind of hard to work back
I know,
with.
I think we covered, I think a lot of the answers you get,
I know Paola's been awesome.
yeah, great job, Paola. But we do want to open it up, so that if anybody wants to, you know, voice any of their questions, they're welcome to. Just please use the raise hand function, and then we can go in order. Philip, I see your hand.
Yes, I put a question in the chat. If you could respond to it, I would appreciate it.
See. What was your?
It's 7:19 p.m.
Okay. Who are community versus city partners, and what opportunities will we have to work with those community partners to use their networks to engage stakeholders? So that will be more.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll define them. So city partners are like city departments.
No,
Um,
I don't mean the city departments. I mean the community-based
oh yeah,
organization.
well, you said who are the community versus city
Right.
partners. So,
I already you said who are the city partners where
oh,
you didn't
okay.
say who the community partners were.
Yeah, community partners, we're still defining that list. As I mentioned, this is, you know, we're still defining that list. We just had a meeting yesterday about defining, building out that list. We have a lot of old lists, and I'm being completely transparent here. We have a lot of old lists. But there's been I mean, I previously come from the nonprofit world. There's been a lot of transition in the last couple of years, especially after COVID. So I think what we are going to do between now and first, second week of January is refine our list, section it out by region, and then send out the citywide kits. Secondly, we're going to make that list essentially public. I mean, we're going to share it with neighborhood councils. There's no reason why we can't. Um, we'll have contact information on there. So, and you know, we'll do some follow-up to see. So part of the asks with with our community partners, Philip, are going to be obviously if they will share our messaging about neighborhood council elections.
Yeah, that's not what we want. We want them to specifically
Well,
communicate on behalf of our neighborhood council to our stakeholders what exactly neighborhood councils are and why they should care. And that's the message that's not getting out, and all the flyering and everything is not going to help if there isn't a basic understanding of what neighborhood councils are and what the utility of it is for our stakeholders. And we have not gotten that message across, and according to your engagement strategy, you haven't either.
am I going to be able to talk? Sorry, I was interrupted. So part of our ask of our community partners is for them to share our messaging of our social press kit. In that press kit, as demonstrated, it shares what neighborhood councils are. It shares the foundational knowledge of what makes up neighborhood councils, what they do, how to join, how to get involved. Secondly, it shares information about neighborhood council elections. Essentially, the general information that Michael shared today, because it's timely. One of the reasons why we are doing this is because we want to bring people into the fold, into the neighborhood council system. And secondly, we also want them to be aware of the neighborhood council system so that they can come to meetings, get involved. Not everybody's going to be, in reality, not everybody's want to run to be a candidate. We understand that. But some people may want to attend a meeting, right? Some people might want to, just be part of a committee. Additionally, we also want to share with community partners, about the MPG programs, and introduce that to them as well. I think our additional ask will be to also let them know that, we do have NC 101 presentations and that neighborhood councils exist in their community and that neighborhood councils can be invited to their meetings if they hold meetings, to their members if they have membership or volunteers, because we know a lot of nonprofits do have regular monthly meetings and that they can provide space on their agendas to neighborhood councils to come and present about their about their work. So I think we have some very tangible asks of our community partners. And like I said, we will be sharing that list out, and I'm being very transparent. We don't have it yet. We have old lists, but we want to make sure that we bring those lists up to date because we understand that in the past 2 years, there's been a lot of change in the nonprofit world. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. So I appreciate the question, Philip.
All right. Do we have any other questions? No? All right. I'll close it out by saying I think Mary Lou and myself are really, we want to stress that, this is a group effort. This is a team effort. We're all a part of this team. And so we really want to help out in any way that we can with this election cycle. We know that, can be different and new to stakeholders. And so we just want to help out. So feel free to email Mary Lou or myself if you need any assistance or help. And we can see what we can be able to provide. So seeing that there's no questions, thank you everybody for attending today. Later this week, I will send out the recording of this presentation along with the slides so they can always be referenced, and feel free to reach out to us. So I appreciate everybody spending their evening learning about neighborhood council elections. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.